My name's Helen Springford. I'm Vice President of Strategic Development at Illingworth Research Group. Illingworth Research Group is a company, predominantly CRO, but we have two niche services. We have medical photography for clinical trials, so anywhere where there's an imaging endpoint. But more importantly, on the rare disease side, the research nursing. So we provide experienced GCP research nurses for clinical trials that go into the patient's home or workplace, making life for trial subjects a lot easier. Especially in the rare disease space, these subjects face numerous challenges. Typically it also involves the whole family. We work in paediatrics as well as adults, especially in the paediatric area. You've got siblings, you've got parents, and very often if they're in a clinical trial that requires and demands a lot of time at clinic, it means that children don't go to school, parents lose work, siblings are inconvenienced. And what we've done, and we've got many examples of this, is we had a study in Duchenne muscular dystrophy where the patient actually lived in the Isle of Man and had to go to Great Ormond Street in London to every week for his visits. And it meant that there was a 14 or 18 hour round trip every week. It was 1.5 days out of the family's time, which is a huge commitment. What they did is they noticed that there was 50% dropout in the trial, that they couldn't afford to lose patients. So they amended the protocol so that they built in Illingworth Research and our off-site nursing. And after 2 years of using the service, our nurse went to the patient's home. 3 out of the 4 visits were done in the patient's home, so they only had to go to hospital once a month. And after 2 years, there was 0 dropout. So a really good example. We have another study in the same indication at the moment where we have a patient who's seen in Canada but actually lives in Iceland. So we had a nurse that lives literally just around the corner from the patient in Iceland, and they have their visits done at home. We work in all sorts of different rare disease types, as I said, paediatrics and adults. So the challenges are they're often not very well. There's massive inconvenience for them and stress, especially if you're looking at even elderly patients as well that potentially are not very mobile. So I think the patient centricity side of our business works very well. My background, I've been in clinical research now for 27 years, but my background is nursing. And our Director of Research Nursing, Juliet Hulse, is also a nurse. And I think that this patient-centric approach really works very well. It resonates with nurses. And we work a lot, again, we try and support patient associations. We have our research nurse teddy bears that we give away, and we also give those away to the Children's Hospital in Birmingham for their Christmas parties. And things like that. So we try and get involved as much as we possibly can to make life of the patient and the family a lot easier. The good news is that the terminology patient centricity has really been bandied around a lot now, but I think that biotechs and pharma companies historically didn't even think of doing visits in the home, but more often than not now they are coming to us before the protocol's finished to say which visits would lend themselves well to be done in the patient's home. Of course, we can't do all visits in the home. If they need an MRI or a biopsy, those still have to be done in the clinic. But there's an awful lot of clinical trial visits that are fairly routine. And our nurses are very well trained, so they can give all manner of INP in the home. We work with couriers, lots of blood sampling and so on. So they tend to come to us earlier than they used to. Typically before it was protocol amendment, it was like a necessity if they were losing patients. It was almost like an emergency backup plan. But they do build that into the studies now, especially if in rare disease areas where there is potentially a limited pool of patients and quite a number of studies. It's really better for sponsors if they can make their study as convenient as possible, so the patients are more likely to go into their study than the next one.